Inside the Taycan rear-wheel drive, now we've already done an extensive video on the Gran Turismo Turbo S, and that car cost nearly $200,000. We did a very deep dive. So for this interior segment, I'm going to be talking about what makes this rear-wheel drive sedan different and why this thing costs half as much. This car, as tested, is $104,000, and it's reasonably well equipped. Mind you, in Porsche world, nothing comes as standard and everything is a la carte. Let's start with the exterior first. The sedan is one of three body style options. Your other two are two variants of wagon bodies. To me, this is one of the sleeker looking bodies. It is the most common, however, and it is the least practical. When it comes to exterior changes and colors, Porsche does a really good job. I think this frozen berry metallic color on the exterior looks spectacular, and the optional wheels look really good on this thing. Porsche does a good job making this look fairly expensive. The trunk space for the sedan is quite good. You're looking at about 14.5 cubic feet, which puts us on par with many executive sedans. The rear seating occupants, or the rear occupants, don't get as much space as they do compared to the wagons. Even with the same glass roof, you're looking at less headroom, and because this car's footprint isn't massive by any means, don't expect executive class sedans level of rear legroom. If you have a taller driver, I mean over 6 foot tall, a full-size adult will not fit behind them. However, if you have more reasonable sized drivers, you can get people back there. The one nice thing about the Taycan as a whole when it comes to the interior is the noise floor. Due to the body rigidity, because this is an electric car and the battery packs add a lot of that, there is very low NVH. You don't really hear anything in this cabin other than the slight sound of wind noise and the distant roar of the tires. It's a very quiet, solid feeling cabin. I talk about that a lot in Porsche products. When it comes to the front occupants, this feels like a typical Porsche. They do a really good job at this in unifying the seating position and really the forward view in most of their products. It feels like you are sitting in a more sporty car. You can get nice and low in the seat. You have great visibility, and all of the primary touch points like the pedals, the steering wheel, and everything you interact with come right to hand. It feels very, I hate to say this, just ergonomic. The door cards are nice and big. All of the touch points in this cabin, like the door switch gear and even the infotainment stuff, feel quite expensive. The gauge cluster is all digital, it is configurable, and it has the premium Porsche 5-pod layout. In cheaper Porsche products like the Macan and 718, you get 3 gauges. Things like the 911, Panamera, and Cayenne, you get 5. For the 2023 model year, however, Porsche has done a good job updating the infotainment. That was one of the big complaints that Mark had with the regular Taycan. It was slow, and the display quality, at least some of the graphics, looked pretty dated. The infotainment in this car has been refreshed to look like the new infotainment found on 911s. It seems faster to react. It now has wireless Android Auto, and it seems a little more stable, though I haven't spent a lot of time with this, so ask me after our next loan. We still sadly have the all-digital HVAC controls. I think Porsche does a better job in things like the Cayenne and 911, where you have a good mix of physical and touch controls, where this HVAC system is all touch. It looks a little better than it used to, but it's still not as intuitive to use. But with all that said, I think it's time for us to head into the shop and put this thing up on the lift. Mark, we're underneath the rear-wheel drive Taycan with the small battery pack.
Again?
Yes, because people ask for a affordable version of the Taycan, and when I say affordable, it's not affordable. It's $104,000.
Well, it's more affordable than $200,000.
That is true.
This makes way more sense at this price. So what's the difference?
This has one motor and a smaller battery pack. So we are working with, 79.3 kilowatt hours?
I think it's 79.2.
So, 79.2.
Yeah, don't cheat there. and that's good for about 250 miles worth of range.
In real world.
In 240, 250. And the horsepower, Jack, let's talk about that. Because
so you're looking at low 300s and 250 foot-pounds of torque, but when you put this thing into launch control mode, it ups the horsepower to 402. When you go with the bigger battery pack, which is optional on the rear-wheel drive model, it's about $5,000, and it ups the horsepower to like the mid 400s, like 469 with launch control, and it's regularly in the high 300s. Is that accurate?
It's 469 with launch control and 254 torques.
Man.
And the base level power is 375 horsepower and 250 pounds of torque. I had to look at my phone because all these numbers, They mean nothing to really most people.
It's still really fast. It's about as fast as you would get from any 6-cylinder turbocharged like premium luxury sedan.
So why are you paying less? Why are you paying $100,000 less for this?
Well, because again, it's one less motor than you get in the Turbo S, and as stock or standard, the suspension system is far less complicated. In Porsche fashion, you can option everything to this car, and if you really want to learn everything there is to learn about the J1 architecture, which is a Porsche-developed full electric architecture for this vehicle that Audi then bought from Porsche to put on the RS e-tron or e-tron, watch your other video. But this is a multi-link front and rear, largely aluminum, very rigid body structure, and as standard, unlike the Turbo S, this does not get the adaptive sway bars with the 48-volt motors, does not have rear steer as standard, it does not have the enormous carbon ceramic brakes, these are standard steels, and it does not get the air ride. You can option air ride to this vehicle, and you can option a mechanical limited slip in the rear.
So this is like the poor man's Taycan right here. This is like the everyman, rear-wheel drive only, no fancy bits.
Yep, open diff, though they claim it's torque vectoring by brake, and it's open diff. Yeah. So with that, I think it's time for us to take this thing out for a drive, Mark.
I'm looking forward to it, Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Jack.
I brought you another Porsche.
Oh, that's a shock. This is an owner car, though, and he did the smart man's color, D'Addario blue.
Plug in, charge up, text your mom, scroll the feed, boom, done. Rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, sedan or wagon, any color you want. Match your eyes, match your dog's eyes, match my eyes.
I can't even wink. Sounds like the future in here.
Oh,
Jack.
it does. This is the rear-wheel drive Taycan, open diff, small battery, no air ride.
Does it have an active rear wing?
Well, maybe.
The trunk, when you leave the trunk open?
Honestly, right, this is the counterpoint to the Taycan we did earlier, which is almost $200,000.
Yeah.
This is the one that you are probably going to buy or more realistically lease. This is 104 grand, and this is the answer to like a 5 Series or something along those lines from Porsche, or a Panamera more accurately.
All right, so I looked at this two ways. When I sat my ass in here, that's what I asked you, is how much it is. Okay, I can eat the 100 grand because it's a really solid car. The question is what is it compared to? Like, what are the direct competitors? And when you said EQS, okay, that's an easy one. I'll take this. What's the other one? The Audi?
Yeah, the e-tron, which is basically this car, and I don't know, maybe the i4 that we drove earlier. Remember that, the dual motor BMW?
Yeah.
But what Porsche does better than all of those other brands is
what do they do?
Is chassis tuning.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, this car is unbelievably solid feeling when you're in it, right? It's so rigid, and I brought this up in the original video, and that's unchanged for this. You feel like you're in a giant concrete box with amazing suspension, and none of the bumps, none of the weird vibrations really make its way back into the cabin at all. It's really just a relaxing vehicle to be in.
It is, and I think that's the thing, right? Okay, so for me personally, I would never consider this. I think at $100,000, there's far better luxury cars, but there's not far better luxury cars available if you want an EV, right?
Yes.
So this by default does not have a ton of competition, and all the same characteristics of the more expensive one, like almost 80% of it is here. And the ride quality, ride isolation, and smoothness is amazing. And
even on coil springs, it doesn't have air ride.
It's just, this is what they do amazing compared to other competitors. And it doesn't feel like a gimmicky space. It feels like a Porsche. It doesn't feel like the EQS where it just
and that was just a
nauseates
giantly
you.
failed experiment.
Yeah, definitely. This feels like a real car at a price that if you have that that upper level income, you're going to be so happy with this.
Do you miss the speed?
No. I don't think it's necessary. I think if I had $100,000 for a Taycan, I have $200,000 for a GT3 to go have fun on the weekends. This becomes my commuter car, where all I care about is, am I going to get to where I need to go and back and charge it at night, and I still have the Porsche experience aside from the speed? Because you really don't need the speed, honestly, with the type of commuting that you're doing on a daily commute.
So the owner of this car, Gibran, he commutes anywhere between 50 to 100 miles a day, given what he does for work. And he told me that on longer drives, like if he knows he's going to leave the Illinois area, he just takes his Cayenne. And that, I think that's the answer to this car. But that's also the shortcoming, right? If you live in our area and you're trying to do a really long distance drive or a road trip, this doesn't work. But if you're just commuting and you live within, you know, your range and you charge it home after every day of work, it's a perfect vehicle.
No, it's perfect. It still carries over all the things that we liked from the other one. 2-speed gearbox, so there's a little bit more natural driving experience. I love the way the steering wheel is in this. It's a bit smaller. Again, it's just not a gimmicky driving experience.
Taycans don't really come with any options. The premium package that adds things like cooled seats, stuff that comes standard on a 50 grand car, immediately bumps us past 6 figures.
Yeah,
it's an expensive vehicle. I'm going to bring up one other thing.
Okay.
The open diff. Obviously, we're having a good time with it, but I think the PTV Plus system will add a lot to this. And if you do option this thing with air ride, it will further isolate the ride in this car.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, if you want more, I think this is a really great spec. This is the commuter spec. It's still expensive, but it's great. If you want more, you can add it. You're just going to be paying a lot more. And then you question, like, do you really need it? What is it really adding?
A bigger car payment?
pretty much. I mean, that's true. Bigger lease payment for sure.
So, Mark, with that, I think it's time for us to wrap this somewhat short Porsche video up.
Thanks, Jack. Final thoughts on the Porsche Taycan, this being the rear-wheel drive or single-motor variant. If you watch this or our previous Taycan video, you'll know a few things. That it's not just about slapping a Porsche badge on there and inflating the price. Well, of course, that's always going to be there a bit. They take all the things that this brand is known for, which is great driving dynamics, natural steering, brakes, handling. It doesn't feel like you're riding on top of a giant battery pack, which is something that the modern EV world is doing also in attempts to wow you with all their technology. That's not what this is about. It's a plenty competent vehicle. It feels like a performance luxury sedan, and that is where it is at its best. Now, the single motor variant here is definitely more on the economy side in terms of pricing compared to the dual motor version we drove. And I think it delivers about 80% of what that car did. It's not as fast, obviously. It doesn't have the insane suspension, adaptive suspension and all that, but it does most of everything that you want from an EV that you're gonna daily drive, maybe plug in at work, plug in at home, and then on the weekend or every other day, you're gonna take your sports car or more performance vehicle, and this becomes your hauler, your everyday normal vehicle. And that's what I really like and respect about it. Yes, it's expensive, but again, you know, you're looking at equally expensive competition that don't do the driver car things as well as the Taycan. Big surprise. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.